This is the Big O Show. This is the Big O Show.
All right. There you are. How you doing, my man? You doing good?
Unload on your ass. You gotta love that.
You gotta what? You gotta love what?
Unload on your ass. Love that.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm doing great. Very, very happy the local hockey team is going to be in the playoffs.
Thank God.
Beautiful thing.
And you got to win tonight. Got to avoid Boston, bro.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Got to avoid Boston. That's
but they have played they have played Boston well this year. But still, I think you'd really prefer avoiding them.
Yeah. I want to avoid them if I can. So maybe you can. The beauty of hockey is, dude. It doesn't matter what seed you are. You really could advance. You really have a shot in hockey. That's upsets are normal. Home ice is not an advantage. All of those things that normally take into play in other sports, not hockey, bro.
Fun fact. Boston set the record for most wins in the regular season this year. They beat the record previously set by the Detroit Red Wings in 96 and the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2000, I want to say. Tampa Bay Lightning in 2019 got bounced in the first round, and the Red Wings didn't make it to the Stanley Cup final either. So, just to prove your point.
And last year, Panthers were great, and they can only get to the second round.
Right.
And they, so best record in the league, and it don't mean shit. Unfortunately. So it is what it is. That's hockey. That is one thing. In football or in basketball or in baseball, brother. 99% of the time, the best team is going to advance. That's just the way it is. You know what I mean? But in hockey, it's the hottest team that is going to advance at that point, which is good. So we'll see what happens tonight. Hopefully they can beat the Hurricanes, who have been a pain in the ass for the Panthers. Your thoughts on this helmet? Obviously it's good to make some improvements, but let's not make it 7% is, it's an improvement, but let's not make it sound like, it's that groundbreaking. But
I echo everything you said. That something is something, but ultimately it's going to come down to making better decisions and give up on the play. And as I wrote earlier on all Dolphins, the two plays where Tua got the official concussions last year, one's a second down, one's a first down. So there was no need to extend the play if it wasn't there. Take off running out of the pocket or just chuck the ball out of bounds. One of the two. No need to like hang onto the ball and let those big guys up front get to you eventually.
Yeah. So to me, that's really what it's all about is, use your head and you'll be fine in this game. Lots of guys your size have lasted forever in this league, and they did it because they were really, really smart. Brady and Manning were much bigger than you, but they played the same way as you should play. They didn't hang on to the damn ball. They made a decision and got rid of the ball quickly, and it's, I've said this 100 times. Anybody watch Marino? Marino didn't hang on to the ball, bro. Marino took a snap and he took 3 steps, and brother, that thing was gone. It was history. One way or the other, it was history. He wasn't going to hang around and wait for Bruce Smith to come around the corner and just, bury him into the ground. That wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to be stupid enough to hang around like that. So
even then, Big O, the other difference between those guys and Tua is those guys were all like you would talk about Brady and Marino, for example. Those guys were like 6'4", 220, 230. Well, Tua's not that big.
No,
he's not that size quarterback where he is prone. If he gets hit in the pocket, at some point he's more susceptible to taking a vicious hit that could cause damage than a guy who's that size, or Ben Roethlisberger even more.
Amen. So. Yeah, man. Common sense, bro. Yeah. Common sense. I asked Omar this. I will ask you this. He thinks Braxton Berrios will be the guy. So I will ask you this. The third wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins. Will there be a third wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins because of the traffic the first 2 guys get and whatever tight end you end up having? Or when I look at this list of Cedric Wilson and Easy E and Craycraft and Berrios and Cedric Wilson, all that, I see a situational third wide receiver for the Dolphins. That's kind of the way I look at it. I don't look at anybody separating themselves And I don't look at it because I don't think the third guy gets enough to separate themselves. So I see McDaniel scheming that third guy in for depending on what kind of play it is and where you're at on the field. Where do you land on that?
Yeah, I don't disagree with your premise, except that Trent Sherfield wound up being that third guy last year, and I think ideally, you'd like for one of those guys to emerge in camp, and really seize the job and shows you, okay, this is a guy who can be trusted. We need to design some plays for him. He needs to be part of the passing game. And we talk about the targets that were lost, including Sherfield, including Mike Gesicki. Well, ideally, logically, maybe the Dolphins don't throw quite as much as they did last year.
That's my point, that I don't think the third guy, because you're going to throw to Hill and Waddle so damn much, I don't think the third guy gets enough to establish himself as a third guy. So if you're in the red zone, you might be using a bigger guy. Or maybe you want to use a Braxton Berrios who can, find some space or something. I just think you might end up using guys depending on who you're facing and where you're at on the field. What's the situation? You might think you can use an Ezukama or Cedric Wilson as a up in the air possession guy, or maybe you need a scat guy that's a little bit more like a Braxton Berrios that can get, behind the line and come across the field and get him in motion and dump it off really quickly, and he can get some yak for you and get you a first down or a touchdown or something. I just think that I don't see anybody there that's going to clearly separate themselves. I almost see like a bunch of specialists.
Yeah, except if we'd had that same conversation at this time last year, would we have said Trent Sherfield's clearly going to be your number 3 wide receiver?
Yes. Yeah. But the problem is now I've seen what Mike McDaniel's going to do. And if I imagine you're going to run a little bit more, which I think you are, and then you still have the two top, what are you going to do? Throw less to Waddle or Hill?
No, but yes, you agree with my point, or yes, you could have foreseen Trent Sherfield being that third guy last year at this time.
Yeah, last year, yes. Because last year I didn't know what I was getting from McDaniel at that moment. And then he looked clearly like the guy at that moment. But now that I know what McDaniel is going to be, at least what I think that third guy is kind of, pot luck. So if you don't think it's pot luck, then who's the third guy?
Well, that's the thing. Is a third guy on the roster, or is it somebody who's going to emerge in training camp? Because here's the other factor that we have to sadly take into consideration, and knock on wood, because Hill and Waddle stayed healthy last year. But if one of those two guys has to miss some games, it can be you just have, you got a bunch of other bodies at wide receiver. Be nice to have another guy who, plug
it's automatic.
Sorry?
It's automatic already.
What's automatic?
Cedric Wilson plays that. He's the guy that's built right away.
And what's your level of confidence in Cedric Wilson?
I have confidence I have confidence. I watched him in Dallas. The problem is they didn't use him much here. They didn't give him a chance to actually get in a groove. I kind of don't blame Cedric Wilson for what happened last year. It's kind of out of his control, dude. You know what I'm saying? And again, I think he went with guys that were running in his system in Sherfield and Craycraft, so it was easy transition for him as a coach to call those plays, and those guys were comfortable in that system. I think Cedric now in the second year in the system, if they don't move him in the draft, I think he'll be that guy that will be the backup for Waddle or Hill, because he's kind of already built to be that guy. As Ukama's not done that, you don't really want to put Craycraft in there. Berrios is not really built for that. So it's really him or Braylon Sanders or Ezukama.
Yeah, I'm not. I'll be honest with you, and I might get killed for this. I don't care. I'm not a huge fan of Cedric Wilson. Got overtaken by Trent Sherfield because Trent Sherfield had a lot of experience in that. I mean, they had the whole offseason and training camp to prepare for the
or maybe that Trent Sherfield's a good receiver and just give him credit.
And if he's such a good receiver, why is it that he was a special teams player his entire time in San Francisco?
Sometimes that happens, bro. Troy Brown was a special teams player his entire time and then became a frontline wide receiver. The Tennessee Titans, what's his name? Damn it, Super Bowl and everything. What's his name? He was a special teamer, and then he became a frontline receiver for them. What's it called? The Pittsburgh Steelers had the Georgia kid, Hines Ward. He wasn't a frontline receiver. He was a special teamer, then became a frontline wide receiver.
He came in for a frontline receiver pretty quickly.
This has happened in the NFL a whole bunch of times that guys come out of Duvernay, special teams guy, kind of got elevated last year and helped out more as a wide receiver. This is normal, man. Some guys are hiding in special teams and they have the ability to become a frontline receiver, but they don't get the reps or they're green and they haven't matured yet or things like that. I wouldn't blame Wilson because Sherfield's a damn good player, bro.
Sorry, I'm sorry. We're gonna have to agree. I'm not on board with you here. Sorry.
I just gave you several examples of guys that elevate themselves and they come out of it, and you just dismiss it.
Because I'm Big O. You want me to just I'm gonna expect Hines Ward was a very good receiver. Hines Ward was like an all-purpose guy at Georgia. He was a complete stud as an athlete. Okay, and here's the thing: he
wasn't a polished receiver when he got to the NFL.
He wasn't, but he was a great athlete to begin with. Trent Sherfield, again, was a special teamer. Cedric Wilson was a backup who got and I got nothing against Cedric Wilson, but let's be honest here. He did nothing in Dallas, had the one good year when all the wide receivers got hurt and he was put in the position. And last year, he got outplayed by Trent Sherfield, who at this time last year, not one soul would have told you, watch out for him. That guy's going to be a stud. It's when training camp happened. But you want to say everybody's
from training camp on, you saw Trent Sherfield from the first day
badly outplayed Cedric Wilson. You're correct. My point here is with you is Trent Sherfield's going to go to Buffalo, and to me, he's going to play a very, again, complimentary role, third or fourth wide receiver. I hope Cedric Wilson takes a jump, but you're going to have to excuse me if I have my concerns if he winds up having to be called upon.
That's fair. I think he's a good player. I just think he was kind of in a tough situation last year with everything that happened with Tyreek Hill, and then you're limited and you're only going to be a third guy, and then the coach is going to feel better playing a guy that already knows his system. And so if I'm occasionally going to use him, I'm going to use a guy that I'm really, really comfortable with in Sherfield. So I kind of understand.
That's where I'm not with, sorry, but that's where I'm not with you. The guy been in the league for 5 years. He had the whole offseason and all of training camp to learn that playbook and the system. If Cedric Wilson was a better wide receiver than Trent Sherfield, he would have been in the lineup. So,
okay. Question. The other one I will ask is, are you buying Odell and Lamar? Will it work?
To a certain degree, yeah. To a certain degree, absolutely. Without question. Well, first of all, I told you last week I'm not buying this thing of the door is closed. There's no way Lamar plays for the Ravens. I still think it's going to play for the Ravens, not just because they got OBJ. Well, he's got no choice, and eventually the Ravens hold all the cards, and he's not going to hold out. Yeah, I absolutely do think that they're going to make it work. I think Lamar Jackson is a hell of a lot better passer than so many people give him credit for, even though he has bouts where he can start spraying the ball and he'll miss some easy throws he should make without question. But I also think he's a lot better passer. I also saw him make some throws last year that were like, holy crap. I mean, that's dropping it into a bucket. And OBJ is going to make 2, 3, 4, 5 spectacular catches. Given his history recently, very possibly he's going to get hurt at some point. And the contract's completely ridiculous. And from where I sit, to give him $15 million guaranteed, but not my money, not the team I cover. So,
should the Dolphins trade for anybody out there? Derrick Henry, Devin White, guys that could be available. Should the Dolphins make the move? Do they even have the ammunition to make the move? Does it make sense in your eyes?
It makes sense if you think about the Dolphins going all in.
Who are we talking about?
Either Devin White or Derrick Henry, although I think Derrick Henry fills a bigger role of the short yardage guy. The question again is how much are you willing to give up, and how much of the future are you willing to sacrifice? But that by the same token, they have owner who's 83 years old, who very much would like to, at the very least, win a playoff game and make a Super Bowl run. And they have a whole lot of pieces in place. They have a lot of big names. They have some high-end talent. The question is, are we okay with let's say, being in the Rams situation 2 years down the road where you have to give away a bunch of really, really good players if it gets you one Super Bowl.
Yes.
I think it's worth it. So,
Yes. Yes.
so yeah, I'm not opposed to it, but you better be sure of what you have, because if you don't, if you come up short and you wind up sacrificing the future, then it's going to be painful down the line. But I don't have. I like Devin White's a hell of a player, but I think he's a little bit crazy with his contract demands from everything I read of, like, when I think he might shoot to be the highest paid inside linebacker in the NFL. Derrick Henry, the one knock against the idea of making a move for him is your offense is built around the passing game. But that's not to say he can't catch the ball out of the backfield. And
I told Omar this because I don't think a lot of people realize it. They actually threw him the ball quite a bit last year.
As I recall, they did, yeah.
Which is not normal for him. And yet he caught like 30-something balls last year, which is like career high for him, and that was I don't know if it was limited quarterbacks. I don't know if it was him wanting to showcase himself a little bit more, or maybe he was wanting to be a part more of the passing game or whatever. But that part I got to give him a little love there, because that's a part of his game that I never really used it as an equation. Like, yeah, he's not really a threat as a pass catcher. Last year they made him a little bit of a threat.
No, and then the other part of the equation is for the Tennessee coordinator. It was like, what else do I have offensively? I mean, especially after they traded A.J. Brown.
Yeah, that's a good point.
They
had one of their tight ends, right? Didn't they lose one of their tight ends also? Didn't they have two and they lost one last year?
Well, 2 years ago they lost Jonnu Smith.
Okay, it was 2 years ago they lost Jonnu. Okay, that's
last year they heard.
No, it wasn't last year. It was 2 years ago. You got it right. It was 2 years ago when they lost Jonnu Smith, who, by the way, is no longer with the Patriots, right?
Right. Correct.
Right? Move on. Patriots are going to be the fourth place team, right?
Logically. Yeah. And I think pretty clearly, and this is where, if Belichick still quote unquote has it as a coach, he's going to show it this year, because on paper this is, and especially don't discount or dismiss the importance of them losing Devin McCourty out of their secondary. That guy is kind of like a tone setter, leader. That's a big piece on defense they lost. And
so you're telling me the Patriots season next year is going to look like a bright line, like a car parked on a bright line track?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, not a shining moment for that that truck driver or tow, whatever you call it, that car carrying driver.
Couldn't he push his whole truck out of the way and just get off and put it in neutral and just push the whole thing out of the way? I mean, did he have to leave it there in the middle of the track? Jesus.
Yeah,
it's got to be kind of fun to be the train driver.
Well, he's not hurting anybody, because
I got to tell you something. I see it. I'm flooring it. I'm going even faster. I'm just busting through.
It's only cars anyway, right?
It's only cars. What the hell? I mean, that must have been fun, dude. That's like and usually like the trains just have some scratches.
Exactly.
Destroyed.
No,
it's freaking awesome.
That's a
all right. Hey, tell them about alldolphins.com. We had Omar on, so you guys have a back and forth now podcast going on. Talk a little bit about that.
We do. It's the All Dolphins podcast. It's on YouTube. I always promote it on social media as well with the link to get it. And it's just him and I talking Dolphins back and forth. All Dolphins, as it says.
Okay. All right. By the way, you need to put him in his place. He doesn't think Christian Wilkins is a great player. So I don't know. He says he wouldn't re-sign Christian Wilkins. I don't know what it is. Do they drug test at Sports Illustrated?
No. They go at a price. And I think the point he was making is he's not Jeffrey Simmons, and newsflash, he's not Jeffrey Simmons.
Okay. I'm still re-signing Christian Wilkins.
Okay, but for how much? Are you giving him $15 million?
He said $15 million. I'm easily giving him the $15 million. I got no problem. He's going to get between 15 and 20, bro. That's where he's at. That's where he belongs. He's just one of the best guys in the league at that position.
Speaking, since you brought up systems earlier, you don't want to see how he fits into the Vic Fangio defense before you shell out that kind of money?
What is it that he can't do?
Rush the passer.
He doesn't?
Consistently.
Good?
No, he doesn't.
He's not an elite pass rusher, but he's still a good pass rusher for his position. He's not elite. There aren't a lot of those from the defensive
He's
tackle spot.
subpar. I mean, for a 3-4 defensive end, yeah, he's average, if not a little below average.
Okay, right, but he's elite in everything else.
Which is what? Stopping the run?
Right.
Okay.
Tackles for
Is
losses.
that worth $15 million a year? I don't know.
Why wouldn't it be worth $15 million a year? So everybody that's $15 million a year is an 8 or 10 sack guy?
As a 3-4 defensive end, those guys will tend to be that, yes. That 3-4 defensive end, 4-3 defensive tackle, the guys who make the big money will get 7-8 sacks.
The 20 million guys, probably 20 plus.
Cameron Hayward, the Jeffrey Simmons, the Aaron Donald, obviously Aaron Donald.
Yeah, there's only like 3 or 4 of those in the entire league. After that,
Williams.
The guys like him are probably going to get in the 15 range, 16, 17 range. They're not going to get 19, 20, 21, but they're probably going to get somewhere in that range because that's what he is. And by the way, who he might be better in this system.
That's what we need. To me, that's what we need to find out before you shell out the big money.
And the other thing I do like about Christian Wilkins is that every year he has gotten better.
That is true.
Every single year he's gotten better.
That is
so
true.
His numbers, I would imagine, are going to go up. Maybe even his sack numbers will go up in this defense. Who knows? All right. Follow him on Twitter at Poupart NFL. Catch alldolphins.com and the alldolphins.com podcast with him and Omar Kelly. Thank you, as always, my brother. We will catch up next week. Have a great weekend.
You do likewise.
You got it, baby. Be good. There you go. Alain Poupart, EJDconstruction.com, Dade or Broward County only. But if you're looking for a contractor, I'm talking about custom home construction, major home remodeling, you call the great people at EJD Construction, 305-433-4843. That's 305-433-4843. And they do anything and everything you need, man. You need to build a second floor, they'll do that. You need to add an extra room to your home, they'll do that. You had a fire in your home, you need to remediate it and gut it all out, they can do that. I mean, they can do anything and everything. Listen, we're not talking about, hey, go fix your doorknob or something. Not a handyman. We're talking about custom home construction, major home remodeling. Maybe you want to do a man cave. Maybe you want, one of our listeners, actually 2 of our listeners now, because he's doing it for another one, home theater. They heard about the home theater, and with the stadium seating and all that, another one of our listeners is building a home theater system with stadium seating in their home. I don't have that kind of home. You got to have a pretty big home with a pretty big room to have a home theater with stadium seating. You know what I'm saying? But hey, God bless you if you can do it. But he's actually doing it for listener number 2 of ours. So they can do that. All the kind of custom work that you need, EJD Construction can do it, baby. 305-433-4843. Only Dade and Broward counties, by the way. Okay, so Palm Beach, Monroe, I'm sorry. Unless you want to call him and bribe him. Maybe he'll drive a little extra or whatever. But call my man Eric, 305-433-4843.